لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم وافتح علينا بمعرفة العلم وسهل أخلاقنا بالحلم وجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم اجعل أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك ولا تجعل فيها حظا لغيرك. وصل اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How's everyone today? Alhamdulillah. Welcome back to the Sarf class. The second one for the year, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Last week we just had a bit of an introduction to the subject, and we touched on a few points in relation to Sarf. However, can I not walk? However, in relation to the content of the subject, we haven't really gotten into it yet. We'll start with that today, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Right. So we said the subject is Sarf. Everybody remember that? Sarf, what does it mean? Morphology. I don't really care if you know what it means or not. I just want you to know the content of the subject, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Morphology. Sarf, literally, as we said last week, it means for something to turn or to change. Right? And following on from that, the subject of morphology, the part of it that we'll be dealing with, deals with how changes in a verb, and an Arabic verb, result in changes in the meaning of that word. Right? There's a number of ways of going about this. The preferred method in our course is that we memorize these skills by just brute force memorization, if you want. That may sound very, very daunting. Oh, memorization, I didn't memorize anything for a long time. No, it's very, very easy things. We'll put a lot of effort into that in the class, and will require you and will request from you as well to put in that effort outside of the class as well. With a little bit of effort and some consistency, this subject, I believe, is extremely, extremely easy. But it's going to require that bit of effort. There's another way of teaching the subject of Sarf, and that would be by explaining the concepts. However, with an explanation of the concepts in the subject Sarf, it becomes a bit more difficult to understand and to see in practice. Our objective is what? Our objective is what? I'm asking you, why did you come here? You want to? We have a goal of eventually understanding the Quran in its Arabic language, right? And so that will require us not just to know things in a decontextualized way. We can't just understand the concepts of Arabic as a language. Rather, we need to have ingrained in us some of those concepts, but we also need to see them in context. Right? We need to be able to see it in a text and understand what I'm reading, or hear somebody read the Quran and understand what they are reading. Now, the way that we study the language, at the senior age, is somewhat unnatural to a certain degree. In that, usually, as a child, you'll just hear a language being used and you'll pick up some aspects of that language. And it comes with our recognition that we know this method is somewhat unnatural, but it is to an extent required for us to streamline our passageway into understanding the language. None of us are, I don't see any 5-year-olds here or anything. So it will require much more time for us and a very great environment change for us to learn the language, where we just become immersed in it, hear it being used, and then pick it up as we go along. Right? So, because of those constraints, we have developed this methodology. And alhamdulillah, for a number of years, since I think Darul Naeem started doing it like this, it has proven to show very, very good results. I too learnt Sarf in this manner, and alhamdulillah, I think I know my Sarf pretty well. But inshallah, that will transfer, and everybody else in this class will be able to say soon that I know my scales in Sarf very, very well as well. And I can see them in context. Right? So, I will give some attention to explaining the concepts. Right? To explaining the things rather conceptually. But our preferred method and what we would want from everyone is to simply memorize the scales of verbs that you will see. Do you have a page with a scale on it? Can I just have one of these sheets, please? Okay, and the other one? This one, no, not that one. This one. No, this one. No. Right. So where do you have the scale? Just to locate where we are. You all have this page here that says past tense scale, al-fi'l al-madi. That's the focus of our lesson today. We are going to be learning the scale, basically putting effort into memorizing the scale, and perhaps I'll just tell you a couple of things about how it works. That seems very robotic and mechanical. We'll see how it gets applied to other words, perhaps by the end of this lesson or in our next lesson, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. What you have here is just a page with empty blocks on it. And as you can imagine, those empty blocks there are for you to rewrite the scale, just for practice and to help you memorize. Okay. Right. So back into our subject, Sarf. What did we say Sarf is about? Okay, or let me rather start over here. In Nahu, you learned that Arabic words are of three types. What are those three types? Ism, fi'al, and harf. Right. In Nahu, you are going to be dealing mainly with the ism and the harf eventually, and Sarf will find, or verbs, af'al will find their way into there at some point in time. But for now, you're going to be dealing with the ism there. In my period here, Sarf will be dealing with what? The fi'al. The focus of our subject is the fi'al. What about the fi'al? How it change in the form, how it change in how the word looks and sounds causes the change in the meaning of the word. Okay, we done this last week. What's a verb? A verb is a doing word. And I wanted to isolate something for you last week. I gave some examples. I said he heard, she wrote, they remembered. And all of you could tell me that the doing words in those sentences were heard, wrote, and remembered. The he, she, and they were just telling me the people who actually did those verbs, or the subject of those verbs. Is that not the case? The one that did the action. Who heard? He heard. Who wrote? She wrote. Who remembered? They remembered. So that first word is the subject is telling me who did the action. And simply that word that conveys the meaning of the action is the verb in English. In Arabic, it's slightly different. In Arabic, it's slightly different. How so? Like I said last week, Arabic words comprise of three main letters, or what we call three root letters. And those root letters can come in a variety of forms. Like I said, we can have the word fa'ala, fu'ila, fi'al, af'al, and there's a whole array of different ways you can put those three main letters together. But those three main letters convey the meaning of, or convey the action that is connected to the word. And then, in addition to that, those three letters can have additions and changes. Now this may be conceptual, we'll see it in practice soon after this, so don't worry if you're feeling like you don't fully grasp what's happening. These additions and changes convey additional information to us. What type of information? What more information do these additions do? They tell us when was the action done and who did the action. When was the action done and who did the action? So, any Arabic verb, any fi'al, doesn't just convey an action, rather it conveys the action plus who did the action and when the action was done. So a single word in Arabic will tell me all of that. What action it is, who did the action, and when the action was done. Right. So when will either be whether it's past tense or present tense or future tense, and we'll learn something about the tenses in Arabic a bit later. And who is doing the action of the verb, of course, that's all. Right, so let's take an example. And this is our beginning, the beginning of our learning, our first scale of Arabic verbs as well. Right? So let's look at that word. I want everybody to say that word for me. Fa'ala. Everybody say it for me. Fa'ala. Very, very simple. This here is the foundation of all your Arabic words, and more specifically of Arabic verbs. Fa'ala. How many letters does the word have? 3. Fa, ayn, and lam. And each of those letters have a diacritical mark or one of the tashkilat on them, right? The fa has a a on it, the ayn has a a on it, the lam has a on it. Fa'ala. That one word, fa'ala, means what? He did. I don't have to say really he, one male did. I just put it there because to make them easy or to distinguish between all of the other verbs. He implies one male. Right? Fa'ala means what? He did. So what all does that tell me? This one word, it tells me what action it is. The action here is simply to do. The verb in the sentence actually simply did. Right? Who did the action? He did the action. When did he do the action? Is it being done now? Will he do the action, or is it done already? It's done already. He did. So this one word, fa'ala, conveys to me all of those meanings, isn't it? Tells me who did it? Him. When did he do it? In the past. What is it that he did? Just did. Right? For example, in future, that will change, for example, to help, or to hit, or to jump, or to cry, or to laugh, or you know, that action can change into any number of actions. But we'll see that in our next lesson, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. For now, we just want to see the standard pattern of changes. And before we can see changes, we need to know what the origin is. What's the standard form? The standard form is fa'ala. So everybody say that for me. Fa'ala is your best friend. Say it for me again. Fa'ala. Right. Now I change that word slightly. And it becomes fa'alu. Everybody say it for me. Again. Again. Fa'alu. You can see something changed there, isn't it? Instead of just being a la at the end, now it becomes a lu. And look at the meaning of that word. What does it mean? They, 3 plus males did. Or you can just say they, many males did. They, many males did. Okay. There was a change in the form, isn't it? The la at the end changed to a lu. Right. What changed in the meaning? I must know 3 things so far, right? What's the action? Still to do. And that action change stayed the same, right? Why? That will only change when the 3 letters change. But we'll see that a bit later. The action stayed the same. When was the action done? In the past, so that stayed the same. Who did the action? First it was he did, now it's they, many males did. They, many males did. So that's the only thing that changed. What does that allow us to do? When we see this change happening in an Arabic verb, the la at the end is changing to a lu, or the a at the end changing to a u, then it changes from singular to plural. Instead of being he did, it's now going to be they did. Okay, that's understanding the concept. What I want everybody to do now is just repeat with me. There's going to be a lot of repetition in this class. And if it's difficult for you, I've heard this for 7 years. It's difficult for me. Or maybe even more than it was. I think this is possibly my eighth year teaching this stuff. So I've heard it a lot as well. But with that repetition, it becomes ingrained. For me now, I can say this, فعل فعل فعلوا فعلت فعلتا فعلنا فعلت فعلت ما فعلتوا فعلت فعلت ما فعلتن فعلت فعلنا. I don't need to think about it. When I see it in a context, I don't need to think about it. And that ability just came from memorizing it. You know, when I was in first, I was like quite eager. And I went home after the first day, and I started saying these scales. And at that time, we had a book compiled with all the other scales. We changed it slightly. That's why we'll give that to you in due time. But I used to say it so much because I wanted to get ahead. And I'm generally a lazy student. I'm lazy. I'm telling you, throughout university, I just slept and crammed. And throughout school, I did the same thing. But yeah, alhamdulillah, I wanted to get ahead with my Arabic because it was really dear to me. And so I memorized the stuff and I put in a little bit of effort. To such an extent that, I kid you not, I used to dream that I was saying the scales. I used to say it in my sleep because of so much repetition. And alhamdulillah, that paid off. But why I'm telling you that is, it's not about me, as an encouragement to you to try and do the same. Repeat it, it pays off. Repeat it, it pays off. Some of us don't like the methodology of repetition, but just do it. It will pay off bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. That's everybody say. What we generally do is we try to implement what we call a TPI, total physical interaction method of learning the stuff. So when we say the scale, we start pointing and doing our own little macarena. Right? So when I say he, I point to the right, or you can choose whichever direction you want to. I think it will be better for you guys when you do the males, because the males are on the right hand side of the class in direction to you. Point to the right hand. So when it's one male, you say he did. So fa'ala, he did. And when you say fa'alu, you point with like 4 fingers maybe. Fa'alu, they did. Fa'ala, he did. Fa'alu, they did. Everybody say it with me. Fa'ala, he did. Fa'alu, they did. Or we can say they, many males did. Does anybody have a question there? You might have seen on the board there, I first said they, he, one male. And then the next one says they, 3 plus. So there's one missing from there, right? Number 2. They, 2 males did. That was done purposefully. In English, we have singular and plural, isn't it so? One car, many cars. He did, they did. In Arabic, in terms of plurality, there's 3 levels. There's singular, there's dual, and plural. However, the dual verbs are very rare. Right? You come across them, very seldom. Even in the Quran, there's, I think, a sum total of about, in the Quran in its entirety, there's about 200 instances of a dual noun being used, let alone verb. So because the dual verbs are so rare, to make the learning of these things a bit easier for everyone, we decided to omit those dual verbs. Don't worry, if you ever want to know them, or at the time when it becomes easier to get them, we'll tell you all of them. We don't want to hide anything from you, right? But just to make it easier to memorize the scale for everyone, we omitted those dual verbs. So we're just focusing on the singular and then the plural, 3 or more. 2 is there, we just left him out for now, but inshallah we'll bring him in the future. Right. So everybody say that for me. Fa'ala, he did. Fa'alu, they, many males did. Again, fa'ala, he did. Fa'alu, they, many males did. Right. So change happening. Just remember, you can perhaps make a marking on your page. I want you to circle this fa'ala. And just note that fa'ala is the standard masculine form of a verb. Standard masculine form. Right, okay. That's just for future reference, inshallah. Right. So let's move on. Those were our first two words in our scale. Perhaps now you want to learn how to say that a female did something. Oh, before we get there, I just wanted you to see that these words, though they may seem very abstract and disconnected from a context, they appear just like that in the Quran. So in learning that word fa'ala, it's your first step into learning to understand the Quran. Yeah, I give you an example. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ. What does that mean? Well, the translation's on the board. Alam tara means, have you not seen? Kayfa, how? Fa'ala means, did. If I look at it on its own, it will mean, he did. In this context, it will mean, fa'ala rabbuka, your Lord did, or your Lord dealt in this context. It literally means did. Have you not seen how your Lord did or acted? بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ, with the companions of the elephant, with the people of the elephant. All that I want you to see from this is, I don't expect you to understand that sentence, don't worry. What I expect is for you to look at that sentence and see, whoa, that fa'ala, even if it wasn't colored red, it looks familiar to me. I know that it is what kind of word? Ism, fi'al, harf? What one is it? Ism, fi'al, harf? Fi'al, remember in the subject we're dealing with a fi'al, right? So that's a fi'al, it's a verb. And whenever I see that verb, I must know three things from that verb. What are the three things? I must know an action that's being done, I must know who's doing the action, and I must know when the action was done. Past, present, or future. Right? So we're just conditioning our minds how to deal with different words that we see or hear. When I see that word fa'ala, I know while it's a fi'al, I must know who did it, when it was done, and what it was that was done. So that's our objective. We're trying to condition our minds so that we can see these things in context, but I'm also showing you that you just learnt your first Quranic word in my subject. You just learnt your first Quranic word in my subject. So that's a step towards our goal. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us achieve our goals. I gave you another two examples. Here we have وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ ذَكَرُوا اللَّهَ فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا لِذُنُوبِهِمْ وَمَنْ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَلَمْ يُصِرُّوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلُوا وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. You see two familiar words there? Well, they're standing out big in red. What two words did we learn now? Fa'ala and fa'alu. Here we see fa'alu being used in the Quran twice in the same verb. Twice in the same verse. What does it mean? It means they, many males did. Right, so what does it mean? And those who, when they did fahishatan, an indecent act, أو ظلموا أنفسهم, or they wronged themselves, ذكروا الله, they remember Allah, فاستغفروا لذنوبهم, and then they seek forgiveness for their sin. وَمَنْ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, and who is there that forgives sins besides Allah? وَلَمْ يُصِرُّوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلُوا, then those people that sinned, they do not persist with their sin. They do not persist عَلَى مَا فَعَلُوا, upon that which they did. وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ, whilst they know and whilst they're in consciousness. I don't expect you to understand the whole verse. Our purpose right now is not to make tafsir of the verse. What did I want you to do? I wanted you to see two familiar words there. I want you to be able to identify that they are verbs, and I must know that an action was done, what that action was, who did it, when was it done. And then, as a point of motivation, you learnt your second Quranic word. You learnt your second Quranic word. Right, okay, that's just a translation. So we move on to the next part of our scale. We did the first two words. The second word, everybody say it for me. فعلت. Everybody again. What does فعلت mean? She did. Or she one. She one, female, did. But when I say she in English, then I understand from that, it's one female, right? So I just say, she did. So everybody say, فعلت, she did. Again? Right. And if we point it that way for the guy, we're going to point that way for the ladies, right? So if you're facing your way, فعل, فعلوا, فعلت. Again? Right. And fa'alta means what? You, one male did. Now here, for you, one male, you're going to have to say you, one male. Because the other one is going to be you, many males, and there's no way to distinguish between all the yous. Otherwise, we'd just be saying, you did, you did, you did, you did. Right, so it's going to be you, one male did. And how do we point now? Guys on the right hand, right? So, we point now forward. You did. So everybody, fa'alta. You, one male did. Fa'alta. You, one male did. Right? Why? Because now it's the person that I'm speaking to. He's the one I'm addressing in the conversation. That's why I point in front of me. And the plural will be what? Fa'al tum. Everybody say it for me? And how am I going to point for that? Many fingers, however many you want. Fa'alta, you one male did. Fa'altum, you many males did. Again, fa'alta, you one male did. Fa'altum, you many males did. Again, fa'alta, you one male did. Fa'altum, you many males did. At the back also? Just because you're far doesn't mean I can't see you. Right. So now we move from the third person to the second person. From the people that we're talking about to the people that I'm actually talking to. You did. Mummies and daddies, you know now how to tell your boys. How do we tell the girls that it was them? Fa'alti will mean what? You one female did. And you many females? Fa'altunna. So everybody say for me the first one. Fa'alti. You one female did. Fa'altunna. You many females did. Again. Fa'alti. You one female did. Fa'altunna. You many females did. Again. Fa'alti. You one female did. Fa'altunna. You many females did. Alright, so what have I learned now? Fa'ala. Fa'alu. Fa'alat. Fa'alna. Fa'alta. Fa'altum. Fa'alti. Fa'altunna. Right. And if I need to think for a moment who it is, fa'ala, I know I'm pointing that way. Guys, outside of the conversation, one. Fa'ala, he did. Fa'alu, they many males did. Fa'alat, she did. Fa'alna, they many females did. Fa'alta, you did. Fa'altum, you many males did. Fa'alti, you one female did. Fa'altunna, you many females did. Now, don't feel daunted. We don't expect you to have memorized that all right now. Right? What we do require though is that you are able to say these words and you make a firm resolve to yourself, I am going to try. I am going to try and memorize it. I'm going to say it every day. When I go sleep, it's going to be, say my kalimas, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, make your salawat, do whatever you do, and then before I go sleep, fa'ala, fa'alu, fa'alat, fa'alna, fa'alta, fa'altum, fa'alti, fa'altunna. And that's your second part of your kalima. After every salah, you make a dhikr, and then fa'ala, fa'alu. I'm not joking. I'm seriously not joking. One day you're going to see on the homework, after every salah, say 3 scales. But seriously, when we think of our practicing these things, think of it as ibadah. Think of it as a step coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what it is. That is what it is. Every moment you say fa'ala, fa'alu, fa'alat, fa'alna, with the intention, oh Allah, I'm saying this so that I can understand your word, that I can understand what you are saying to me, and I can come closer to you through that. That is ibadah. Right? Ibadah is not only the ritual things that we do, our ritual acts of worship, but all of these things that bring us closer to Allah, that is ibadah. So it requires a bit of effort right now, and I request everybody to do that. So we learned the second person. Fa'alti, you one female did. Fa'altunna, you many females did. Okay, quickly. Say it to your partner next to you. Just the second part of the scale. Fa'alta, fa'altum, fa'alti, fa'altunna with their meanings. Part time quickly. Just so that you can get a chance to say it. Everybody.
That verse that you showed us now, no? Yeah,
masculine formula. Okay. Last two words that we need to learn now for today. So we learned how to speak about them outside the conversation. We learned to speak about you. Now we need to learn to speak about ourselves. I did it. So what are those? The first one is fa'altu. Fa'altu means what? I did it. Whether the person is a male or female, it stays the same. Fa'altu, I did. So we point that one finger at myself. I did it. Fa'altu, I did. And the last one, fa'alna, we did. Fa'altu, I did. Say everybody, fa'altu, I did. One finger. Fa'alna, we did. Whether it's two, many, however many. Fa'altu, I did. Fa'alna, we did. Right. So this is what we've learned now. This is what we've learned. We learned how to say for the third person, the person outside of the conversation. He did, they many males did, she did, they many females did, you one male did, you many males did, you one female did, you many females did, I did, we did. Right. Like I said, it may seem daunting now. We don't expect you to have this memorized right now. What we do expect is daily, put in some time, try and memorize it, even if it's piece by piece. 2 words a day. Fa'ala, fa'alu. Next day, fa'alat, fa'alna. The next day, fa'alta, fa'altum. The next day, fa'alti, fa'altunna. The next day, fa'altu, fa'alna. How many sections are there? 2, 4, there's 10 sections. By next Sunday, you'll know it inshallah. Right? By next Sunday, you'll know it inshallah. And say it all the time. And every time you add on a piece, repeat the previous section and add on your new piece. Right? So what we're going to do now is we're just going to say all of this together. Right? We're going to say all of this together. Fa'ala. He did. Fa'alu. They many males did. You can say it with me. Fa'alat. She did. Fa'alna. They many females did. Fa'alta. You one male did. Fa'altum. You many males did. Fa'alti. You one female did. Fa'altunna. You many females did. Fa'altu. I did. Fa'alna. We did. Just something to point out. Can you see this word over here? Fa'alna. And that word over there, fa'alna. They're very similar, right? The only difference is fa'alna and fa'alna. There's an extra alif at the end of the one. And it has a great impact on the meaning. Fa'alna, they many females. Fa'alna, we. So you must be sure to say them correctly, get them in your mind correctly. So what remains for us for this lesson to be complete? For this lesson to be complete and for us to move on to the next stage of learning how to say other actions, etc. What I need to do is put in some effort to memorize it. If I could, I would memorize it for all of you. But unfortunately, that's a task that everybody must undertake on their own. We can help each other by having someone to say it to, etc. But that's a bit of effort that you must put in yourself. Don't be daunted, it comes eventually. Don't be daunted, it comes eventually. One of my, one of the students in my first class I taught, he's now about 73 years old. And that was about 8 years ago. So he started and he was about what, 65 or something like that. So he was 65 and he learnt it. Actually, he's in his 5th year now actually he's in his final year of Alim course. He decided to go all the way. But there are others that have done it as well. The one student that was with me in my first year of study, he was also 70 years old. Or I think he turned 71 in that year. So even if age is something that puts you off and makes you feel a bit deterred and scared about memorizing something, just try. Every day after Salah, fa'ala, fa'alun. Next day, you have 5 Salahs in a day. By Isha time, you can be saying them all, right? But that memorization, I cannot stress enough how important it is. Why? It's not important just so that we know scales. It's important so that these things are ingrained in our minds, such that when I see them in a text, specifically the Quran, or when I hear them recited, then I understand them without having to think about it. And that's not going to come in a night or a day. It's going to come over time, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, with constant effort. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaches us in a hadith, the best of actions are those actions that are small and few, or those that we do consistently, even if they are small and few. مَا دِيمَ عَلَيْهِ وَإِنْ قَلَّ Rasulullah says. Those things that are done consistently, even if they are small. And our need to actually say these things will weigh with our repetition. So before we end, I just want everybody to say this whole scale with me quickly. فَعَلَ, he did. فَعَلُوا, they many males did. فَعَلَتْ, she did. فَعَلْنَا, they many females did. فَعَلْتَ, you one male did. فَعَلْتُمْ, you many males did. فَعَلْتِ, you one female did. فَعَلْتُنَّ, you many females did. فَعَلْتُ, I did. فَعَلْنَا, we did. Right. Now we can say it without the English ones. Right, everybody. فَعَلَ, فَعَلُوا, فَعَلَتْ, فَعَلْنَا, فَعَلْتَ, فَعَلْتُمْ, فَعَلْتِ, فَعَلْتُنَّ, فَعَلْتُ, فَعَلْنَا. Right. How do I say we did? فَعَلْنَا. It's already coming quickly. Some may have thought, but don't worry about it, inshallah. In due time, it's going to become better. We must practice. Alright, so what's your homework? I had some stuff in there that we'll do next week, inshallah. But just before we end, what's our homework for this week? Well, you can tell. The first part of your homework is to memorize the scale. That's the most important part. However you want to break up that memorization, and however tickles your fancy, you can do it like that. But just ensure that you are putting in some effort to try and memorize it. I'll advise for the first couple of times, maybe take a portion after every salah, but each time you add a new piece to the previous piece that you learned. I'm going to advise you strongly, do it with the motions. Yeah, it might look like you're doing a little dance there, whatever. It doesn't matter. You are going to be the one that benefits from it, because your mind just registers that action. I put there, pay attention to the form of the words, but that's a secondary objective of the homework in your memorization. What you must do to help you get there is complete the 2 homework sheets. What are the 2 homework sheets? Can I just have those sheets, please? That's one, and the other one. These are your 2 homework sheets. The first one says past tense scale. What you do on there? Merely populate these blocks with the words that we learn. So what is on what's on your scale sheet, you put that over here. You put the Arabic and the English. You haven't got this one? You didn't get this one? Okay, the ladies got it. Okay, your sheets then are on that table. You must get it before you leave. Right? Or there are no more. Okay, it will be emailed to you then, inshallah, if you can print it out, or otherwise we'll get a copy of it next week. But make sure you do the homework. Right. This sheet over here, you'll find that I have Arabic words. What I want you to do is, those Arabic words are the words on your scale. Translate them for me. The English words, translate them to Arabic. If you need to use your sheet to help you do this, use your sheet. But what I prefer you to do is, for every word that you come across, you say the scale until you get to that word. And then you write down. For example, the first word that I have there is fa'alta. Fa'ala, okay, that's nothing to say over there. Because it's just fa'ala. But take the next one, fa'alna. What I'd like you to do is say fa'ala, fa'alu, fa'alat, fa'alna. Okay, fa'alna, they many females. That amount of repetition, inshallah, will really help you to memorize the scale. We end with that. وَجَزَاكُمُ اللَّهُ خَيْرٌ وَآخِرُ دَعْوَانَا أَنِ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, but not right now.